Nineveh saved. Everybody's happy, right? Wait, someone's not happy about Nineveh being saved? Who could it be? You're watching At the Pastor's Desk. You would think that God's sparing this whole city turning and repenting to God, turning from their evil ways and showing faith in Him, in the true God, would be a time of great joy and celebration, especially for the prophet who brought this word to them. But we see in Jonah chapter 4, Jonah's not happy about this. In fact, he is angry that these people are saved. Why would he be like this? Why would he be angry at this great salvation? Well, let's get into it and find out. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. That first part, that it displeased Jonah exceedingly, literally in the Hebrew is evil to Jonah's eyes. He thought that this was an evil act done by God, that these people would be saved, and he was very angry. But again, why would he be angry at this? Why would he be angry at this great act of salvation? Well, he tells us. Let's keep reading. And he prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee to Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and relenting from disaster. Jonah says that the reason that he fled from God's presence, that he didn't want to go to Nineveh, is precisely because God is a merciful God. He knew that if the people repented from their sins, that God would forgive them. And Jonah didn't want that. These people were enemies of the Israelites. Jonah and all the Jews hated the Ninevites, and so he wanted them to be destroyed. And so he didn't want to bring this message of God to them, precisely so that God could not forgive them, because they wouldn't turn from their sins on their own. They needed the conviction of the Holy Spirit. And so this is why Jonah didn't want to go in the first place, because he knew that if they repented, God would forgive them, because he's a God of mercy and steadfast love. And Jonah did not want that for the Ninevite people. In fact, Jonah is so angry that he wants to die. He thinks it'd be better that he died. He says this, Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. Jonah's so upset. He would rather die than see these Ninevite people forgiven by his God and shown that mercy. He says, it's better for me to die than to live and see all of this supposed injustice. These people should have been destroyed by God for all their works, for all their evil, but because they've repented and asked for forgiveness, God forgives. And this is how God works. This is his salvation. Isaiah talks about this, and when he writes, God says, my ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. Usually that passage is quoted in times of pandemic or major catastrophe, saying we don't know why God allows these things. But that passage is really talking about God's salvation, his mercy, his love for us, and that we wouldn't forgive the people that God forgives, but God's ways are higher than our ways. His mercy is higher than our mercy. And God poses this question to him, do you do well to be angry? Is it benefiting you, Jonah, to be angry at this salvation, the salvation of these people? Does it benefit you? And of course the answer is no, it doesn't benefit him. But Jonah is not dealing with that right now. He is still very upset about all of this happening. Then we get to see in verse 5, kind of going back to what Jonah did in the first place after he spoke these words, what he did. So this is what happened. Jonah went out of the city and sat to the east of the city and made a booth for himself there. He sat under it in the shade till he should see what would become of the city. So Jonah, after proclaiming this message that Nineveh in 40 days would be overturned, overthrown, destroyed for their sin, he leaves the city because he's expecting the city to be destroyed. And he sets up a booth on the east side and sits back to watch the destruction. He's got his popcorn ready, his booth's all set up to shade him from the sun, and he is ready to watch the destruction of this great city. And we see here the love of God for Jonah. Even everything that Jonah has put God through, God still loves him and cares for him. We see God continue to provide for him in the next verse. Now the Lord God appointed a plant and made it cover up Jonah, that it might be a shade over his head to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was exceedingly glad because of the plant. So this booth that Jonah made was not doing very well. It wasn't shading him from the sun like Jonah had intended. Again, the work of man is never sufficient. Only God's work completely does what should be done. And so God makes this plant for Jonah to shade him where Jonah could not do it. And Jonah is extremely happy. He rejoices that he has this plant, which is ironic in that he is so happy about this plant shading him from the sun. That joy should be shown for the people, the people of Nineveh that will be saved. But he doesn't. And so God then uses this plant as a lesson for Jonah. Here's what he does. But when dawn came up the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the plant so that it withered. When the sun rose, God appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah so that he was faint. And he asked that he might die and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." So this plant that God gives, God then sends this worm to start eating it up, and then the sun to scorch down and just pound Jonah until he's fainting. And again, he gets to the point where he thinks it is better to die than it is to live. Jonah doesn't know why this is happening to him. The sun is beating down on him. He feels like he's going to faint, and just the heat is unbearable. Like myself, anyone who has run cross country or track down in the Texas summer sun knows what this feels like, that you would rather die than keep on going. But God is using this as a lesson, and let's see what that lesson is. But God said to Jonah, "Do you do well to be angry for the plant?" Notice God brings the same question as before. Does it do you well to be angry for this plant? But this time Jonah responds, and he says, "Yes, I do well to be angry enough to die." So Jonah, while he wasn't angry enough to respond to God the first time, when this plant gets destroyed, now he's angry. Now he's going to say, "Yes, I am angry enough to die." Again, it shows how angry Jonah is at this situation. And then God speaks. And the Lord said, "You pity the plant, for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow, which came into being in a night and perished in a day. And should not I pity Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle?" So God says, you pity this plant. Why shouldn't I pity these people, this whole city? You didn't do anything for the plant. You didn't make it. You didn't make it grow. You didn't nourish it. You just reap the benefits of it, and yet you're so angry at this. How should I not care for these people that I created, that I put into being? And these people, they don't know their right from their left. They spiritually were all over the place. They didn't know the true God at first, but now they do. And God cares for them. He loves them. He wants them to be saved. And so God uses this lesson of the plant to teach Jonah, you care for this plant. Should I not care for all of these people and their cattle, all of these living things? And it leaves us there. That this is the end of the book of Jonah. We don't get Jonah's response. We don't get any more from God. And so we're left to wonder, how does Jonah react? Does he agree with what God said? Does he continue in his stubbornness and his hate and anger towards the Ninevite people. But this is what God leaves us. In fact, with Job, we get a similar thing. The friends of Job have been, pounding him with questions, trying to get him to turn away from God. When Job cries out to God and asks why he's doing all this, notice God's response. This is from Job chapter 38. God says, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors, when it burst out from the womb? When I made clouds its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, Thus far shall you come, and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stayed." And he keeps going on for like the next 2 chapters, asking these questions of Job. Where were you when I created the world? Go ahead, tell me. And of course, Job can't answer. And he ends up answering saying, "Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for questioning you." And this is the sense we kind of get with Job. We as sinful human beings are not in the position to question God, why he lets things happen, why he does things, why he saves people that we think shouldn't be saved. It's not our business, and it's not up to us. And so we are left to just trust in God, trust in his promises, trust that he cares for those who love him. In times like pandemic, when people are asking, why would God let something like this happen? It's not in the Christian's benefit to try and answer all this away or say, oh, well, God means it for good somehow, or yada, yada, yada. He may work good through it, but the question itself is a bad question. This thing is happening. It's a result of the sinful world. And yeah, God let it happen. He's in control. We don't know why, but we still praise and trust in God because he promises to watch over his people and to save all who will be saved, who won't reject him. And so we trust in him and continue to love our neighbor as we can in this time of difficulty. So that does it for the book of Jonah. Again, it's a short book, only 4 chapters. And so I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any other books of the Bible or any other topics that you would like me to make videos or video series about, go ahead and leave those ideas in the comments or let me know personally, and I'd be happy to make those for you. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button so that when new videos do come up, you will be notified right away and can check those out. Also, check out the previous videos we've done on Ecclesiastes and other theological topics. So, thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.